believe it's back to school time already? Welcome back to the channel, biscuits. Oh my goodness, I feel like August is crunch time, right? You're still wanting to enjoy summertime and relaxation, but like school is kicking back in for a bunch of people. And maybe you unschool, so that doesn't matter. Maybe you homeschool and you don't start until later. Our homeschool normally goes year round, but this year we've kind of taken a big long summer break. So I know our school district starts at the end of the month, really, which is crazy. So I'm not sure when we'll start back up officially. In Washington State, you have like a teacher partnership program where you have somebody that you report to every week and you give them what you're doing, so they kind of dictate when we start. But these are my hacks for getting your homeschool less crazy, because I really felt like our homeschool was all over the place. I used to be extremely organized with it. When we lived at the house before last, not the place we just moved from, but the house before that, you know, I had a space set aside for the homeschool. I had it all organized. My son was much younger then, and my daughter was not born or a tiny baby. And so now I've got the two kiddos that we are scheduling with, and we tried going back into public school, and that did not work well. My son did not mesh with that at all. Even though, my God, did I like having the time to just do things, to work, to clean the house, to like breathe. So this year we're trying to find a combination of still wanting to homeschool, because my son does seem to do better with more individualized attention, and still getting him kind of out and learning how to do peer-to-peer interaction more, you know, hanging out with kids, which we've always done. I've always done extracurricular fun classes that different homeschool partnership programs offer in the area. But this year we're being a little more particular about them. So what I'm actually doing this year, and this is specific to my family, my kids, you know, my daughter learns differently. She's 3 than my son, who is almost 10, and has a bunch of extra needs for being on the spectrum and having delays and just some really pathological, actually, what is that? What is the term that he got given? Oh, it's like pathological demand avoidance. No, it's not demand avoidance, authority avoidance. It means he doesn't like being told what to do, which makes school very tricky. So what I'm doing this year is we are getting him a tutor for a couple hours a week to work on subjects that he does not like being taught from by me. So my first tip is figure out what your kids can learn from you and with you. It doesn't mean areas that you are particularly advanced in knowing about, but areas where they will take instruction from you. Your kids, like my daughter, will study anything with me, right? She's very flexible and like, oh, she wants to learn things. Obviously, it's for a little preschooler age, but you know what I mean? Whereas there are subjects that my son struggles with, and so if he's struggling, he does not want to work on them with me. And we were actually really fortunate in that in the last year or so, his uncle has been giving him tutoring time here and there. And he made so much progress because we could see that he absolutely knew the material, he knew how to learn it, he just didn't want to hear it from me. So I'm learning my strengths and weaknesses with each child on this, because homeschool is so individualized to children, right? And we're going to do a tutor time. I'm hoping at least 2 hours a week. We're going to see how that schedules out, so that he's feeling more capable and less intimidated, so that we can then go through the projects. And that's just the way he learns. We are going to be doing more homeschool extracurricular activities so that he's out seeing other kids and playing with them and being instructed by their adults to follow rules, because we're really working on that. Is that this is something big that he needs to start being able to interact with the world a little bit more smoothly. And that's part of our homeschool curriculum. And the next thing we're doing, we had a technical difficulty there. So I'm not sure at what point that cut me off when something fell on me. But I can't believe how expensive homeschool curriculum is sometimes. So we've been piecemealing it together because my kids have been at low grade levels, right? And it's not super important that we're doing that. But this is the first year we've really started going to educational stores and picking out our curriculum in a little bit more detailed way. And that in part is, and I know all you homeschool parents will understand this, is because I've kind of learned better what our homeschooling relationship is together as a family. And that's kind of taken time. So find a really good curriculum that works for you. And it doesn't have to be detailed and overwhelming. Some of the curriculum is huge and maybe is more than you're going to get through in a year. I used to start out, truly, when he was just in preschool, kindergarten, I'd go to Costco and I'd buy the grade level of his material. And it lets me also be able to kind of judge where he is grade level for different subjects, which is really helpful. And then we've kind of branched out from there. We don't do a lot of electronic, I'm just going to close that computer staring at me. Speaking of, we don't do a lot of electronic learning, so we'll do some Khan Academy on the computer, and he has programming software on the computer for learning programming, but he hasn't really enjoyed that as much. He only likes it when he's coding with little buddies. But we tend to stick to actual physical books, physical writing, which I know is not how public schools are. When Bubba Goo went to public school, he was just all on the, oh yeah, my love. He was just on the computer constantly at school, and it did not work well for him. And I didn't want him having that much screen time because he watches a lot of cartoons anyway. I want him to be able to read books and write and actually have that skill, which I know is crazy in this day and age. You're like, what woman, you're insane. So the things that have really worked for me to simplify and streamline our homeschooling is to absolutely know what subjects we can all learn together. It might be all of them, or I might need to ask for help with a tutor or with an extracurricular class that needs to teach him certain things. Figure out what you can teach and focus in on those. Don't fight. If there's a subject that you and your kid just butt heads over all the time, right? All the time. Keep working with them on it, but also get help. Get a tutor, get a relative that can come in for an hour or two a week and just work with them so that it's less of an area of frustration. Because one of the things that will burn you out quickest as a homeschool parent and guarantee that you're going to end up back in public school for a kid is when you just can't come together and actually cohesively work as a homeschool family. And that's tricky. It's not talked about a lot. I feel like, there's parents that have unschooled their kids because homeschool doesn't work. That doesn't work for my son. He is not a self-led learner. He will not learn anything if I don't make sure he is. And then some parents just give up the homeschool because it's so frustrating, and then they head back to school. And that is not a bad thing to give up. If my son would let me, I would probably send him to public school for at least a year just for him to work on some attitude adjustments that need to be adjusted. But he so hates it that I've really tried working with him as best I can for his learning style. So figure out what your learning style is, figuring out what subjects you can more easily teach together, and then look for help. It might be an online homeschool program, it might be an online school program that maybe you need one or two subjects taught in, right? Look and see what's going to make your family a peaceful, happy homeschooling family and not constant struggle and fighting, because that's absolutely what homeschooling can become, and that's no fun. I always support however you want to educate your child, right? Like, go for it. You know your kid best of what their learning styles are. I would love to hear your homeschooling stories down in the comments. I'm very curious. I don't talk a ton about homeschooling on here because it's not really what this channel is about, but I like to share my motherhood journey, and part of that has been, playing with, does homeschool work for us? Does it not? I always think there's not one right or wrong answer. There's some people that are hardcore homeschool is the only answer. Unschooling is the only answer. Waldorf is the only educational process. Public school is the only thing you do with your kids. And I'm kind of more adaptive and flexible in my opinions on that, because I think it depends on the school and all of the resources you have in your area. We'll see. I'm giving my son another semester, so until next January 2025 to decide if homeschooling is really going to work for him. And then we'll kind of reassess from there and go well, would you like to try public school again? And if he is excelling in homeschool, then that's great. because I do think you kind of have to reapproach it every couple of years and go like, oh, is homeschooling working? Because sometimes homeschool works really well, like kindergarten, first grade, and then they're starting to need more in-depth education. They're starting to need more in-depth rule adherence, or they're starting to need a lot more social interaction. And some kids just really thrive in the homeschool environment. Like, it really works for their learning style. They are self-led learners, and it works beautifully. I suspect my daughter is a self-led learner that really wants social interaction. So I kind of suspect that she's not going to be a good candidate for office for homeschooling. So I'm curious to see how that turns out. Because I have kids with such strong personalities, but that are very different. Oh my goodness. The Kellys are a gaggle of very strong-willed human beings, to say the least. And we're all so different. It's fascinating to see. So I'm curious as the years go on, and you biscuits will follow along, I hope, and stay along and see in 5 years, what am I saying parents doing for school? But we've been going through a real struggle this last spring and winter with Abraham on homeschool. And so I was like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to share what has worked for us. Because all the homeschool I see is like, here's this curriculum, here's how to do this. Here's this really fun arty craft that you can do with your kids. And I don't see enough of the homeschool struggle. I can't be the only mom who is really trying her best with a learner whose learning style is just very difficult to hone down and work with. I'm sure a lot of you have sons that are energetic and wild and just want to go roll around in dirt and play, and they don't want to sit down and, learn their math, right? So I'm here, camaraderie. There's got to be other moms out there that are going, whew, that's a ride. And that is why I leave it up in the air. I literally go semester by semester over what we're going to be doing, because I say, like, what's working not just for the homeschooler, but for the whole family, because homeschooling really has to work for the whole family. It's really fun to get to do personalized education. We've gotten this amazing history packet book where we're studying pilgrims, and it's been so fun to see what he learns and what he retains information-wise, because we make it so interactive. We use a lot of STEM kits, so we're actually building things, science, engineering, mathematics, and all that. And he loves those. He thrives on those. He fights me the whole way while we're building it. So it's fascinating to have to live, as you know, I like to manifest things, to live in an area of life where I'm not manifesting anything in particular. I'm just letting life unfold and see what works for him and for me and for our whole family. And it's a lot of surrender. That could be the theme of my year this year, biscuits. Surrender. Let the world unfold before you. Alrighty, biscuits. I will see you over on Instagram. I don't know that I'm going to share a ton on homeschooling on Instagram, but you let me know if you're interested, and I'll talk about it more on here. And maybe I can make, like, Instagram's doing the chat group things where you can, like, invite somebody into your chat group on Instagram. I could do that on homeschool if you want. It's more of a struggle breast homeschool. So just so you know, it's not like, oh, she does the perfect crafts. This is more, would you like solidarity in how hard it is educating a child in the United States in this day and age? Because there are no good, perfect solutions that solve all the issues. So I'll see you over on Instagram. Bye, biscuits.